Today, Matt Walsh Show. Chaos breaks out in Dearborn, Michigan as Americans show up to protest the Islamic takeover of the city. This is an issue that anyone who claims to be America first should be speaking out about. Also, a man sets a woman on fire on a train. Guess how many prior arrests this guy had? Plus, Elon Musk says that AI will save us from ever having to work or use money again. Is that true? And if it is true, is it good? All of that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show. Our DailyWire Plus Black Friday is here. Right now, get your annual DailyWire Plus membership for half the price. All the shows, all the movies, all the news you need. 50% off. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Thanksgiving is all about gratitude. Friends, family, food. But between travel costs, groceries, and rising costs generally, your wallet might be feeling the squeeze. If financial stress is creeping in this holiday season, it's the perfect time to focus on your credit health, because strong credit means less financial stress all year long. That's where Kickoff comes in. Kickoff makes building credit incredibly simple. You can use your phone to sign up in minutes with no credit check, no hidden fees, and 0% interest. For just $1 your first month, you can start building credit immediately, then continue with transparent plans starting at $5 a month. Set up autopay, and you'll never worry about missing a payment. Users with credit score under 600 grew an average of 84 points in their first year with on-time payments. And with over 1 million users and hundreds of thousands of positive reviews, it's clear why Kickoff has become the #1 credit builder on the App Store. It's safe, trusted, and an affordable way to take control of your credit. Start building credit with Kickoff today. You get your first month for as little as $1. That's 80% off the normal price when you go to getkickoff.com/Walsh today. That's Kickoff without the C. getkickoff.com/Walsh. Must sign up via getkickoff.com/Walsh to activate offer. Offer applies to new Kickoff customers first month only, subject to approval. Offer subject to change. Average first-year credit score impact of 84 points. Vantage score 3.0 between January 2023 and January 2024 for Kickoff credit account. Users who started with a score below 600 who paid on time who had no delinquencies or collections added to their credit profile during the period. Late payments may negatively impact your credit score. Individual results may vary. For all the time that we spend on the latest political developments in the nation's biggest population centers, for example, the election of a Muslim socialist in New York City or the attacks on immigration officers in Los Angeles, it's undeniable that some of the biggest and most important stories are happening in much smaller cities and towns across the country. It's in the smaller locales that we're seeing some of the real flashpoints emerging. Even though no corporate media outlet would dare to talk about them, what we are now seeing are very disturbing images that could soon define our national politics as large-scale demographic replacement begins to take hold. And whatever you make of the disasters unfolding in places like New York and California, the decline of smaller cities is even more disturbing. So consider Dearborn, Michigan, population just north of 100,000. If you were ranking American cities by population, Dearborn wouldn't even crack the top 300. But the population that Dearborn does have is highly significant. Dearborn currently has a larger portion of Muslims than any other city in the U.S., and it recently became the first Arab majority city in the country. Fully 55% of Dearborn's residents say they have Middle Eastern or North African ancestry, which explains why Dearborn boasts the largest mosque in the entire continent of North America. Now, Dearborn, as I've said so often on the show, is in every way an Islamic capital at this point. It is not an American city at all, except geographically. Dearborn has been conquered, and the few remaining Americans in Dearborn are now finding themselves surrounded by mobs of Muslims chanting Allah Akbar and telling them to leave the city. So this is footage that was taken by Nick Shirley, one of the few journalists who's willing to travel to Dearborn and report honestly about what he sees there. The footage shows Shirley attempting to interview an activist named Jake Lang, who was one of the pardoned January 6th defendants. But the interview doesn't go anywhere because at this point, Dearborn basically resembles Fallujah. Watch.
I believe they're going to cancel the 6:30 City Hall meeting because everybody's chimping the out. They're chimping the out. I don't have bananas. Chill out. I don't have bananas. This is not America. This is an insurgency. They are are taking over our country. They're taking over our country. They want us all dead.
Wow. This is Dearborn, Michigan right now.
Yes, this is Dearborn, Michigan. Any racist is not welcome. No races here.
Now, that is a video that should be playing on repeat on every American news station. The president should have responded to this by now. It is footage that 25 years ago, everybody would have assumed came from Iraq or Afghanistan. So to be clear about what you just saw, if you're an American citizen and the mob of Muslims that controls Dearborn believes that you're racist, then you're not welcome in the city any longer. Your constitutional rights to freedom of expression are suspended. You'll be surrounded and hounded by mobs shouting Allah Akbar. And indeed, that is the official position of the government of Dearborn. It was just a few weeks ago, you may remember that the mayor of Dearborn, Abdullah Hamoud, publicly berated a Christian pastor, telling him he's not welcome in the city because of his views. This is the same mayor who, as we talked about yesterday, said he disavows the concept of assimilation. So this tactic of driving out Americans who disagree with the Islamization of the city extends not just to the mob, but to government officials in the city as well. So that's what makes this, among other things, a constitutional crisis. In an American city, no one, not even an alleged racist, quote unquote, should be surrounded, intimidated, and forced to leave for their speech. That's not something that should ever happen under any circumstance. It doesn't matter if he starts talking about bananas. It doesn't matter if he insults Muhammad. It doesn't matter if he burns a Quran. I don't agree with that. I wouldn't do it myself. But this is America. In this country, unlike the Muslim world, we have the freedom of speech, freedom of association. The Quran is not a sacred text that we protect by law. Muhammad is not a prophet whose name we revere in this country. This is America. But places like Dearborn don't look much like America anymore or act like it. Jake Lang, while holding a sign reading Americans Against Islamification, was also punched in the face on camera in Dearborn by someone who quickly ran away, very courageously. Watch.
I'm a traitor! I'm a I'm a traitor! I'm a
That wimp just running away. He's like already running away while the punch is still in the air being thrown. He's already somehow running away. Now, as long as we're still prosecuting hate crimes in this country, why hasn't the federal government opened an investigation into that attack? That's a hate crime. He's protesting against Islamification, which is his right as an American citizen. I don't care how you feel about it. You don't have to like him or agree with his tactics. It can make you feel upset. It can make your tummy hurt that he's got a sign that says, we're against Islamification. Doesn't matter. Deal with it. He is well within his constitutional rights as an American. Well within them. He's expressing a view about a particular religion that he believes conflicts with his own beliefs. And for doing that, he was violently attacked in the middle of the street. It's the hate crime. So where's the DOJ that prosecuted Douglas Mackey for making a meme? Why aren't they all over this? Douglas Mackey was charged with violating Americans' right to vote by making a meme about Hillary Clinton somehow. Meanwhile, we have a clear attack on somebody engaging in First Amendment protected speech. And so far, it hasn't been a word about it from the DOJ. And by the way, this wasn't the only time that Lang was attacked in Dearborn, and others were attacked as well. The independent journalist Cam Higbee was pepper sprayed and assaulted after he attempted to defend a Christian protester in Dearborn. Watch.
Why is he not welcome on a public sidewalk?
Get the camera out of my face. Get that camera out of my face or I will take it from you, okay?
Phone right here.
Is this his phone? All right, guys, he just got pepper sprayed for attacking and assaulting someone. No, you're not gonna get your phone. Actually, you get it. Here you go. There we go.
Yep.
Come on in.
No!
No!
I got it. Flush this out.
Right there.
All right. You're good. Just stack.
Deep, guys. As you can see here,
Oh,
the jug that was water. We got a bunch of.
Now, when Cam reported this assault to a police officer in Dearborn, the officer refused to investigate it. He claimed that he couldn't leave his post or take a report. But just a few minutes later, Higbee saw the officer leave his post to take a personal phone call. Watch.
My main issue here is that you said I could go into the station later and file a report. He's in black bloc. You're never going to find him again. You will never find him again. The detective will not find him. I promise you, I've been in this situation before. You're never going to find him. He's masked head to toe. You will never find him again. Yeah, that is work. It's lazy. So you know that a crime happened, and you're going to let it slide because why? Then go arrest him. Okay, find me somebody who can. Okay, yeah, find the police report after he's gone and you'll never find him again. This is lazy police work. You are a lazy police officer. Or you just don't want to get him. Oh, I thought he couldn't leave his post. He's gone. He's not even here anymore. He said he couldn't leave his post. We're going to go right over there. We're going to say hi to him. We're going to get his name and badge number before we leave. Hey, officer! Who couldn't leave his post. Here he is running.
Officer.
Officer! Officer who couldn't leave your post. Can I get name and badge number real quick? Officer, you said you couldn't leave your post a second ago. That was a lie. Can I get your name and badge number before I leave? Name? Okay, thank you. You can leave your post to take a personal phone call, but not to make an arrest, apparently.
So he says that it's a lazy police work. I think he's being too kind to the officer. This is not laziness. It's just that most likely this officer agrees with the crime that took place. I mean, that's the only assumption you can make when you've got an actual crime takes place and you're saying to the police officer, hey, this crime just happened. The guy's right over there. And the officer says, yeah, well, nothing had him. I can't leave this spot. Sorry. The only rational assumption we can make is that, oh, well, you're okay with the crime. You're glad that it happened, and that's why you're not going to investigate it. So this is a systemic top-down assault on the civil liberties of Americans in Dearborn. When Americans are beaten in the street, police look the other way. You know, when Americans assemble outside the city council, they're surrounded and intimidated with chants of Allah Akbar. In America, I have to keep reminding you, this is in America. You'll have mobs surrounding you, chanting Allah Akbar. Now, it really doesn't matter what you think of Jake Lang or Cam Higbee. It doesn't matter if you think they're great people or horrible people. It doesn't matter if you think Cam Higbee is a good journalist or whether Jake Lang is a good activist. It doesn't matter. I've seen some people on social media, including people who are, supposedly conservative, saying that, well, Lang's a fraud. He's just a shock jock doing this for attention. Now, I don't know the guy. I don't know much about him. I can't speak to his motives. I have no idea. All I know is that this is a completely unacceptable state of affairs in an American city. And if you're looking at these video clips and to you the headline is, wow, well, that guy is being rude. If that's the thing that jumps out at you, and not that they're chanting Allah Akbar in the street, assaulting Americans, and the police are not investigating because they agree with it, like if that's not if you're more concerned about, well, that was kind of rude, that's not nice for him to be saying that stuff, well, then I don't know what to tell you. This is unconstitutional. The DOJ has a civil rights division to protect our civil rights, and they need to move into Dearborn along with the National Guard immediately. The city council meeting under heavy police guard did eventually take place. At the meeting, Lang offered these remarks, and I'm going to play them at some length, not because I agree with or endorse everything he says, but because the whole scene is important for you to see and to hear how the audience responds, see how the police responds. And most of all, you need to understand that Lang is what happens when the government decides to replace American citizens with Muslims from the third world. when you displace Americans, when you berate them, when you assault them, when you vilify them, destroy their livelihoods, destroy their communities, destroy their homes, then you get people like this. You get resistance. And at that point, once you've pushed people far enough, you don't get to choose what the resistance looks like. You don't get to tone police it. When you target a specific race for replacement, which is what the left has done across the country, when you engage in open racial warfare, then you cannot pretend to be outraged when you get this kind of response. It's inevitable. Watch.
We have to call it what it is. You guys don't live like we do. We don't want you in our country. We will come and eat your shawarma in Somalia, okay? We don't need it here in Michigan. We don't need it in any part of America. We have a right to self-determination. Our founding fathers fought and died for our posterity, for white Americans. And we're being driven out. You come here and you marry 4 or 5 women and you outbreed us. You change the laws. You make all of our country look like the places that you fled from. We don't want you here. Respectfully, get the out of my country. I don't want you here. We don't want you here.
That's fine.
I don't want you here. I don't want you here.
That's fine, sir. Just
This is our country. And
Chief,
the
can you send the
people,
guys out there?
the veterans, the World War II veterans, that's blood has soaked for our constitutional republic, are taking a look around Europe. They're taking a look around America, and they're saying, what the hell did we fight for? We have been taken over without a single shot fired. You guys are outbreeding, insidious parasites on the American way of life. You will never look like us. You will never eat like us. You won't build buildings like us. You are nothing. You can build nothing. Just like President Trump's great American friends have said. You guys are not us, and get the out. America first. America only. God bless America. Jesus is king. Jesus is king.
Thank you.
Jesus is king. Jesus is king.
Thank you.
Jesus is king. Jesus is king.
Time has expired. Order in the chambers. Order in the chambers.
And that concludes our meeting for
Jesus is king.
Well, this is what happens. Remember, it's at one of these city council meetings, as we mentioned a few weeks ago, that a pastor got up there, much more polite, very nice about it, very gentle in his approach. Didn't say anything racist, didn't say anything derogatory at all. And all he said is like, hey, why are we renaming the streets after these, these Muslim figures that have no significance to American culture? And what was he told by the mayor? He was told, you're not welcome here, get out. That's what the polite, nice people were told. And then, so when you respond that way to the polite, nice people, then you end up with that. That's what comes next. That's always what comes next. Now, if you're listening to the audio podcast, an entire line of police officers had to follow that guy out of the meeting. And as we'll see in a moment, to their credit, some of these officers accompanied him to his car as a mob of Muslims surrounded him outside. But before we get to that, we need to see a little more from this meeting. It was, I think we would probably say it was the most consequential, certainly the most interesting city council meeting in Dearborn's history, probably. Not that I've seen very many of them. So here's Cam Higbee, the journalist who was assaulted, and here's what he had to say.
I asked them simply why they were harassing and touching another individual who had stated repeatedly that he was only on their side of the street to talk to them and have a dialogue. My phone was smashed. You can see the broken camera right there. They stole $50 out of my pocket, and they stole my microphone receiver. I went and I told one of your officers, badge number 3668, that this had happened. He told me there was nothing that could be done about it unless I went to the station. I told him, I can't go to the station. I'm working. I'm doing my job. He said, I'm working too. I said, yeah, your job is to protect me and all of the people that are out here today. Okay? So we said that I could go into the station later. I told him, you're never going to catch the guy if I go into the station later. He's going to leave. He's dressed head to toe in black bloc. I filmed the whole thing, but he had a mask on his face. You'll never, ever get an opportunity to arrest that person ever again if you don't go and get him right now. He said, sir, I can't leave my post. 5 minutes later, I caught him in the parking lot on a personal phone call. Okay? Repeatedly today, I watched people that are in this room get attacked by other people that are in this room. One of my favorite quotes from the Prophet Muhammad: "A woman's testimony is worth half that of a man's due to the deficiency of her mind. God created two sexes, one superior and one inferior. That's why your women wear hijabs, because they're inferior to men. That's why in most Muslim countries they can't leave their homes without permission of a male guardian." Is my time up?
You have 30 seconds. You had 30 seconds.
Oh, 30 seconds.
Yeah,
okay, great.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I shouldn't feel like a dhimmi in my country. That's what I feel like in Dearborn, Michigan. It doesn't feel like home. I feel like a dhimmi, a second-class citizen, which is what Christians are in the majority of Muslim countries. Dhimmis. Second-class citizens. And the policing in this city, that's exactly what happens. And I know rank-and-file officers in pretty much every city usually want to take care of these problems. You're the one giving the orders, Mr. Mayor. These guys definitely want to do something about them. They're business. Look at them. These guys are all business. Your orders. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Now, watching footage like this, and there's a lot more like it, you have to wonder how much longer can the city of Dearborn continue to treat Americans like second-class citizens, as Cam Higbee says. I think that's a pretty fair summary of what happened when you're assaulted and the police tell you to their face that they're not interested in investigating it. I mean, I'd say that's what it means to be a second-class citizen. How much longer can Americans tolerate this takeover of Dearborn, the hometown of Henry Ford and the Ford Motor Company? And what's going to happen when this escalates even further, which it obviously will? Now, make no mistake, the foreigners in Dearborn are not interested in peace at this point. One by one, Muslims stood up at this city council meeting to mock the Americans who complained. Here's one particularly sassy guy who made one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard in my life. Watch.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. I just want to say a few things before I start. First of all, the word Sharia just means law. Saying Sharia law is saying law. So it seems like there's quite large group of individuals here who are intellectually inept, and if that word is too big for them, intellectually inept, I'll say it again, they can Google it later.
This is one of those gotchas that's extremely hard to watch without cringing uncontrollably. He really thinks that this is some kind of devastating checkmate. It's like saying the Sahara Desert is a nonsense term because Sahara means desert in Arabic. It's the kind of statement you'd make if you're a really annoying person who desperately wants to avoid discussing anything meaningful, so you default to some incredibly dumb and annoying linguistic argument that's completely pedantic. I'm not even going to dispute his translation of Sharia, although I don't know, it's probably wrong. Maybe it's not. In this country, we use the term Sharia law as a shorthand for Islamic law, as opposed to actual functioning legal systems, ones that don't call for beheading when you leave the Islamic faith, for example. And this speaker knows that. He just wants to avoid the topic. And as the guy continued to speak, we quickly discover why he doesn't want to talk about substance. Watch.
It is incredible that individuals who were charged with beating cops with bats are allowed to come to this city and say that they are going to take a holy book and burn it. This is not free speech, and this is not hate speech. This is speech that will initiate violence. That is correct. This will initiate violence. You are coming to come and burn a book that Muslims hold very dear to their heart.
So did you catch that? Islam is the religion of peace. Muhammad is merciful, he says. And then he says that if you mock Islam, then you're causing violence. You're responsible for the violence that Muslims will inflict on you. I mean, that's what he's saying. You see how that works? They say, well, we're the religion of peace, but if you make fun of us, we'll assault you. So don't be violent by making fun of us, okay? Because you're going to cause us to be violent against you. Now, to be clear, it wasn't just Muslims who encouraged violence against Americans. Several members of Antifa-type groups also spoke. Watch.
I'm part of the group BAM, By Any Means Necessary. Our full name is the Coalition to Defend Affirmative Action, Integration, Immigrant Rights, and Fight for Equality by Any Means Necessary. And we came today to say that fascists are not welcome in Dearborn. The likes of Hudson and Lang are not welcome in Dearborn. I think that was made extremely clear by the action today, people saw what was happening and they came out and provided the welcome that such people deserve. And I think this really sets a model to other cities who are facing these same kinds of attacks. By the end of the march that I was on, they went from being maybe, I don't know, around 50 people to like 3 guys with a banner because they had been scared away. And I think that is exactly the kind of action that is needed. And I think Dearborn really set the model for how to deal with these situations.
So this masked activist saying her political opponent should be stopped by any means necessary is openly celebrating the fact that her political opponents were intimidated into silence. So this is an admission of a constitutional violation, which she should be prosecuted for. The fake nonprofit she belongs to, which Andy No has extensively reported on, should be shut down. But of course, that probably won't happen. More than 2 months after the murder of Charlie Kirk, has a single leftist group like this been investigated, much less shut down? Well, this would be a pretty good place to start. For now, these terrorists are emboldened for obvious reasons. Another masked activist condemned the city council for failing to use law enforcement to shut down the protesters. Watch.
Sorry, I'm standing here today in solidarity with several members of our community that are here and who attended our march to condemn Anthony Hudson, Jake Lang, and their fascist supporters, and also to condemn this council's poor, abysmal attempts to protect them. The police outside, they did nothing to really disperse the crowd of fascists. All they did was protect them, and that is wrong.
As a result of these kinds of threatening statements, as well as the actual violence that was on display, Jake Lang and Cam Higbee requested a police escort out of the meeting. They asked the police officer to accompany them to their cars. Unfortunately, the officer agreed. Not that it should have been necessary to ask in the first place. And even with the officers there, a few people tried to harass them anyway. At this rate, it's only a matter of time until the violence escalates. Everybody knows that. And no sane or decent person wants that to happen. Antifa wants that to happen. But the last thing that a sane or decent person wants in America is violence. But the problem is you cannot work to undermine American identity and national sovereignty and scold and castigate and condemn every American who objects and tell them to leave town, especially tell the nice ones to leave town, and then be surprised when the whole situation devolves into chaos. Now, the only solution, the only way to prevent the chaos is to return American cities to Americans, to return America to Americans. It's the only possible solution here. It's the only one that can work. But at the moment, for whatever reason, some prominent figures who claim to be on the right are actually training their fire on the people who are protesting the Muslim takeover of Dearborn rather than the Muslim foreigners themselves. So here's what Jake Shields wrote, for example, in response to a video of one of Lang's protests, quote, "Muslims don't hate Christians, so I'm not sure what the point of this is. Do this in Brooklyn in a mostly Jewish community." So I guess the idea is that in order to dunk on the Jewish communities, we're supposed to forget about the fact that Muslims have been killing Christians for 1,400 years. Muslims don't hate Christians? What in the world are you babbling about? They're killing Christians across the world right now as we speak, particularly in Nigeria, as we discussed a few weeks ago. Every year, Muslims are executing thousands of Christians because of their faith. Meanwhile, Islamic countries are also flooding our country with immigrants who hate us and who openly threaten us at city council meetings. But we're supposed to believe that Muslims have no hatred for Christians whatsoever, even though that statement defies over a millennium of human experience? After I challenged Shields publicly, he responded by claiming that Christians have killed far more Muslims than the other way around, which isn't true. And then he pivoted again to like, well, we need to talk about Jews. That's all he wants to talk about. And as I told him on X, this is just full-on anti-Christian propaganda, something straight from the left-wing Reddit fever swamps. Talking points that are totally indistinguishable from the far left. An effort to distract conservatives from doing what needs to be done, which is taking back our national sovereignty. And we can't fall for it. I mean, there are some people ostensibly on the right for whom, hating Israel is literally the only issue that matters, the only one. They would happily let our country succumb to a third world invasion if it meant we would have more people here who don't like Israel. So Israel first from the other direction, as I pointed out many times. Now, in any case, the time for a national federal response to this invasion is long overdue. But there hasn't been one. And therefore, this week, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, decided to take action on his own. He designated CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood as foreign terrorist organizations. Here it is.
Governor Greg Abbott also today labeling two Islamic groups as terrorist and criminal organizations.
And his proclamation bans the groups and those connected to them from acquiring land in Texas. Fox 4 Sean Rabb in our newsroom with the still developing story. Sean.
Yeah, very much so. The two groups are the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Now, neither are on any State Department or federal terror list. And while only the federal government has the power to designate a foreign terrorist organization, the governor does have the authority to issue a proclamation and apply state penalties if there's a violation. In issuing that proclamation Tuesday, Governor Abbott said that the actions taken by the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE to support terrorism across the globe and subvert our laws through violence, intimidation, and harassment are unacceptable. Today, he said, I designated the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE as foreign terrorist organizations and transnational criminal organizations. These radical extremists are not welcome in our state and are now prohibited from acquiring any real property interest in Texas.
Now, CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood deny these allegations, of course, but the evidence is pretty clear. During a federal prosecution related to terrorism financing nearly 2 decades ago, CARE, which is basically a subsidiary of the Muslim Brotherhood, was named as a co-conspirator in an effort to funnel millions of dollars to Hamas, which the U.S. designates as a terror group. CARE's founders were also in close communication with Hamas. Now, as Abbott wrote in his proclamation, quote, Hassan al-Banna, who founded the Muslim Brotherhood, professed that jihad is an obligation from Allah on every Muslim, and that jihad means fighting unbelievers, plundering their wealth, destroying their places of worship, and smashing their idols. And even in the present day, the Supreme Guide of the Muslim Brotherhood has stated that the organization's primary goal is to establish Islam's mastership of the world and to forcibly impose Sharia law worldwide. The government's proclamation adds, CARE is an Islamist organization that, according to the FBI, was founded as a front group for Hamas, and CARE and its members have repeatedly employed, affiliated with, and supported individuals promoting terrorism-related activities. Now, there's also new reporting that CARE allegedly cut $1,000 checks to campus radicals who besieged American universities back in 2023. So they're directly funding anarchy in this country. Going after these two organizations isn't going to stop the kinds of problems we're seeing in places like Dearborn, but it's a start. And the federal government needs to follow through at this point. There's no other option. There's also some reporting today that as a favor to Qatar, the Trump administration may be holding back. But I don't know if that's true or not. There's no reason to do that. We elected this administration to target foreign invaders. Well, here you go. And we need to dismantle their institutions if we're ever going to remove them from power. The Islamification of America is one of the greatest threats we face to our country and to our national identity. It's impossible to be an American first nationalist unless you're taking a stand against this. Remember that Dearborn is the place where protesters chanted, "Death to America." Again, you're not America first if you align with people who literally chant death to America. I mean, opposing those who want to see the death of our country explicitly is about the lowest possible bar for America first. We need to protect and preserve our country, and we elected this administration to do exactly that, to represent our country to the exclusion of every other. But we're getting taken advantage of all over the country by people who come here and hate us. It's not just happening in Dearborn. City Journal just published an article on the extent of Somali Muslim fraud in Minnesota, which is far worse than anyone realized. They're not just stealing our money with various welfare schemes. They're also using that money to fund Islamic militants and terrorists. Quote, a source described the close links between the Somali American community in Minnesota and Islamic terror groups abroad. 10 years ago, the source was recruited as an independent contractor for a 3-letter agency investigation into the Minnesota men who had joined or attempted to join ISIS. That year, a Homeland Security Task Force report found that Minnesota led the nation in the number of Americans who had joined or attempted to join ISIS. Of the 58 Americans who had done so, nearly half came from Minnesota. The relationship is ongoing. This is a third rail conversation, but the largest funder of al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer, the source said. There's a real issue here that is real, and if there's ever an event that is traceable back to these funds or to people from this area, then the situation will take on a whole new set of optics. Now, there's another recent article by Armin Rosen called The Shame of Our Cities, How Minneapolis Became the Medicaid Fraud Capital of the USA. It's also worth reading if you're interested in the mechanics of some of these fraudulent schemes. But really, the mechanics don't matter. The people doing this shouldn't be in the country in the first place. The fact that they're stealing from us and funding terrorists is just more reason to put an end to this. Now, these stories and this city council meeting in Dearborn are the clearest possible sign that we're running out of time to rescue America from this foreign invasion. We should never have to witness a scene like that city council meeting ever again within the borders of the U.S. We shouldn't have to wonder if our tax dollars are funding fake anti-American nonprofits, much less terrorists. And we should accept nothing less than the full weight of the federal government coming down on these invaders and returning America to Americans. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. When Mary said, "Let it be done to me according to your word," in Luke 1:38, she said yes to God's plan. Despite the uncertainty, the risk, and the sacrifice ahead, that single yes brought Jesus into the world. Today, mothers across the country face their own life-changing moment when they see their baby on an ultrasound screen. Many are scared, many feel alone, and without support, that chance to say yes can slip away. But you can help change that. Thanks to listeners like you, Preborn Network clinics offer immediate, practical support to mothers facing uncertainty with things like maternity clothes, diapers, counseling, and more. So far, over 380,000 babies have been born because someone like you showed up for a mother in need, but thousands of other lives hang in the balance every single day. This holiday season, you can provide the hope a mother needs. You can help give a baby the chance to live. To donate securely, dial pound 250 and say baby. That's pound 250 baby, or visit preborn.com/Walsh. That's preborn.com/Walsh. Every gift is tax deductible and impacts generations to come. Fall's a great season for enjoying the outdoors, but it's not so great when the leaves start falling and your to-do list starts growing. The holiday season is already busy enough without having to worry about cleaning out your gutters. Whether you're tired of constant clogs or don't even know what your gutter looks like, Leaf Filter offers a permanent solution. An investment in Leaf Filter is really an investment in protecting your whole home. Clogged gutters aren't just annoying, but they can cause serious water damage, from flooding and roof issues to rotted siding and foundation problems. You may have seen the cheap DIY solutions at your local hardware store, but they often cost you more down the road. But Leaf Filter is more permanent. It's your permanent solution backed by a lifetime no-clog guarantee. When you call for your free inspection and estimate, a Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will clean out, realign, and seal your gutters before installation. There's a reason over 1 million homeowners have trusted Leaf Filter, and now's the time to invest during their Black Friday sales event. You can save up to 35% on their Leaf Filter system at leaffilter.com/Walsh. Schedule your free inspection at leaffilter.com/Walsh. This is their lowest price of the year, so act now before it's too late. Save up to 35% off now at leaffilter.com/Walsh. See your representative for warranty details. Here's a story that I think we're going to get, we'll get more into this next week, do a deeper dive. But NBC News has reported a man accused of setting a woman on fire on a Chicago transit train this week has been hit with federal terrorism charge, according to a criminal complaint. Lawrence Reed, 50, was charged with one count of committing a terrorist attack or other violence against a mass transportation system Wednesday in the Northern District of Illinois in connection with the attack Monday night. The incident unfolded just before 9:30 p.m. on a CTA Blue Line train. Security video captured the moment a man, authorities identified as Reed, walked through the train car holding a bottle and approached the victim, 26-year-old woman, and poured liquid over her head and then ignited it. While he was being transported to Detective Division, Reed made repeated, spontaneous, and unprompted utterances, specifically yelling, "Burn and burn alive," according to the filing. That's what he said. Now, somehow this NBC article, as I skimmed through it, neglects to mention the most important point, which is that this psycho has previously been arrested. Guess how many times? Guess how many times he's previously been arrested? If you haven't heard this story, just take a guess. 71. 71 prior arrests. So this arrest is number 72, if you're keeping track at home. This means that this guy was arrested 30 times, and by that point, hadn't even experienced half of the arrests that he would eventually have on his resume. This guy was like, he has, 70 times more arrests than the average person gets speeding tickets in a lifetime. Okay, like I've been driving for 20 years. I think I have 2 speeding tickets. Basically one, I'm good for 1 a decade. He has more than 30 times as many arrests as I have speeding tickets. So, there are a million ways to put these numbers in perspective, but the main point is that obviously it should not be possible for a person to be arrested 71 times. That should not be a thing that happens in a civilized society. It should be mandatory life sentence after, your third felony arrest. And those laws are supposed to be on the books in some places, the so-called 3-strike laws, but they've been watered down almost everywhere so that they're basically not in effect. But really, forget about mandatory life in prison. It should be a mandatory death penalty at a certain point. I don't know, maybe after your 10th arrest. Let's be generous and say 20. Okay, if we're not going to have mandatory life sentence after 3, then okay, after 20, it's execution. You're arrested 20 times. I don't even care the reason. Okay, once you get to number 20, you're done. Permanently done. Your life is over. Okay, if you can't keep your number of arrests down to 19 at a minimum, then you just don't deserve to live anymore. You're not fit to be a part of human society. We can't afford to keep you around. You're a danger to society. You're a strain on society. You've made it very clear you don't want to be a part of society. And so at a certain point, at what point can we say, okay, you don't want to be a part of this, fine, as you wish. At what point can we grant these people their wish? They don't want to be a part of civilized society. So at what point can we say, okay, we catch your drift. We got the message. We'll give you what you apparently want. So there's a lot more to say about this story, which we will in the coming days. All right, let's move on to this. Elon Musk is, I don't know what this is, some kind of event that he was, I don't know where this is exactly, but he's giving his predictions about AI. Of course, we've been talking a lot about that. And this is the U.S. Saudi Investment Forum. That's what it is. And here's what Musk says about AI. Listen.
If you say, in the long term, where will things end up? Long term, I don't know what long term is. Maybe it's 10, 20 years, something like that. For me, that's long term. My prediction is that work will be optional.
Optional.
Optional. So.
We'll take that.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be like playing sports or a video game or something like that. If you want to work, in the same way, you can go to the store and just buy some vegetables, or you could grow vegetables in your backyard. It's much harder to grow vegetables in your backyard, but some people still do it because they like growing vegetables. That will be what work is like, optional. Now, between now and then, there's actually a lot of work to get to that point. Mm-hmm. I always recommend people read Ian Banks' culture books to get a sense for what a probable positive AI future is like. And interestingly, in those books, money doesn't exist. It's kind of interesting. And my guess is, if you go out long enough, assuming there's a continued improvement in AI and robotics, which seems likely, money will stop.
So that's Elon's prediction, and I have to object to basically all of that. And I mean, I like Elon Musk. He's the only billionaire really trying to do anything worthwhile with his fortune. Maybe not the only one, but he's one of a few. SpaceX. I love SpaceX. I love the fact that he gave us free speech on social media again. I've said that Elon is one of the great men of history, and he is. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. There are a few people currently alive on the planet who will be remembered in the history books. Elon is one. Trump is obviously another. There's only a few of them. Most of us will be forgotten, but he's one of the few. On this AI stuff, I strenuously disagree. First of all, I don't see how AI could possibly create the utopia he's talking about. For one thing, AI is not going to make everybody's jobs obsolete all at once. It's going to wipe out whole industries. I believe that, but that's not going to happen at a time when we're living in this utopia that Elon describes. So when the customer service jobs go, and the delivery jobs and the truck driver jobs, when all that stuff goes away, those are all going away. Almost certainly soon. In the next 5 to 10 years. Well, that's millions of people out of work, and what happens to them? They're going to have their work taken away at a time when work is still very much necessary to survive. And I think that work is always going to be necessary to survive, even in a non-capitalist society, even pre-industrialization, even in a hunter-gatherer society. I mean, you could go back 5,000 years, and I think you could go forward 5,000 years, and work is necessary to survive because life requires resources to be maintained, and resources require work to obtain. That simple. Someone has to do the work to provide the food, the shelter, the warmth in the winter, the clothes, and everything else, not to mention all the other things that are not necessary for survival, but still are necessary to make our lives enjoyable. That stuff comes from somewhere, and people have to do work to create those things. That stuff can only be obtained through work that someone has to do. The only way to live without work is to compel someone else to do it for you, which is slavery. Now, maybe Elon imagines a world, I assume this is what he's saying, is that it will be in a world where AI will do all that stuff for you. So now we're talking far off in the future. I mean, if you're talking about AI building houses and growing your food, now we're talking decades and decades in the future. Before that happens, if it happens, millions of people are going to be jobless and destitute. They're not going to make it to the utopia. That's the part Elon doesn't mention. But let's imagine this utopia. Let's pretend that it's 50 years in the future. Somehow we made it through the absolute hell that's going to be required to get to that point. And now AI does everything. Okay? Just does everything. And this would require, as he kind of mentions there at the end, like, in order for it to do everything, you need not just AI, but AI and robots. And you need to finally have like the sci-fi kind of robots that, can walk around and function just as people and have AI brains and whatever else. So that we're far off in the future. Well, is that actually good? I mean, to live as a human being, utterly dependent in every way on soulless, mindless algorithms and machines for your survival, is that good? Is that a good life? I mean, a life where we don't have to do any work because we just have, because we're like infants, where we are infants and we never grow beyond the infancy stage, and we are totally dependent. We don't know how to do anything for ourselves. We are totally dependent on these machines that don't love us, don't care about us, don't even know that we exist, have no consciousness. Is that a good life? Is that in any way a good life? I mean, aren't you just now talking about the Matrix? But the Matrix is not supposed to be something that's a dystopia, not a utopia. This is the Matrix. I mean, we're all plugged into, we're all in these kind of robotic wombs. And so that's what he's describing. Does anyone watch the Matrix and think like, oh yeah, that's the world I want to live in? So I don't, this to me is not a good thing. I had another thought about AI, sort of about AI. It's just something I was thinking about yesterday. We talked about on Friendly Fire, we debated AI, and Ben is more on the side of embracing AI as a good thing. I'm more on the side of killing it with fire, so no surprise there. But he said something kind of offhand that we didn't get into at the time. He said one of the good things about AI is that it might extend our lifespans by 20 or 30 years. Elon Musk has talked about the same thing, that this is one of the advantages of AI is that's going to extend our lifespan because of the ability to diagnose and treat illness and that sort of thing. And maybe AI will eventually be able to come up with cures for various different diseases. I don't know if that's true or not. I think it may very well be true. And yet there's something that always bothers me about this. Like, I look at that, I think, well, does that make AI worth it? And I say no. I mean, even if I were to say, well, yeah, sure. Even if I knew that in the near future it could extend our lifespans by 20 or 30 years, does that make it worth it? I say no. And there's something that always bothers me about this obsessive push to extend human lifespan. I'm in favor of extending them, don't get me wrong. But at another level, it's like, why? I mean, we live on average 85 years. If we could start living on average 105 years, what difference does that really make? I mean, we live now 20 years longer than our ancestors did. Does that extra 20 years really make us happier on average? Are we even doing anything with that time? And besides, even if you live to 100, your life is still going to be so short as to be almost non-existent on a cosmic scale. So the extra 20 years is nothing. I mean, your entire life is a blink of an eye. And so now you're adding another fraction of a blink of an eye on top of it. And here's what I'm getting at. So I'm all for curing diseases. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for that. I'm sure when I'm 85, I would prefer to live to 105, maybe. It also depends on what kind of health you're in. But here's the thought I have, which is only tangentially connected to AI, which is that, the thing that makes life difficult is impermanence. Life is short, life is fleeting. That's what's so sad about it. Every stage of life is even shorter. We experience little deaths along the way until we get to death itself taking hold. Parents feel this as they watch their kids grow older. You're happy they're growing up and all that, but it's also sad because the unique joy that this one stage of childhood gives you is going away. It's dying. And, the 5-year-old version of your child is going away, never to return. You're never going to get that time back. So life is fleeting. Life is impermanent. But here's the bigger problem for us. Every generation through all of history has noticed this and tried to do something about it. Every generation has realized that it will only be around for a blink of an eye, and it's tried to do something to counteract life's impermanence. I mean, this is in many ways like the story of human civilization, is just finding ways. We all realize that we're going to die soon, and we're just, what do we do about that? Is kind of, that's the story of civilization. What do we do about the fact that we're all going to die? And the way that our ancestors approached this, what they did about it, was they surrounded themselves with, and they built permanent things. They built giant stone temples and cathedrals and pyramids and monuments. They built things to last. They formed big families, right? They had a lot of kids, and they stayed with their families many generations together. And they lived in places that their ancestors, they lived where their ancestors were buried. And they'd go to a temple, and they knew that this temple's been here for generations. My great-grandfather worshiped here. My great-grandchildren will also worship here. And so they were connected in that way. They felt connected with the past and the future. They raged against the dying of the light with things that would not die. Temples and bloodlines do not die if they're maintained. They were surrounded by permanence. Now, for us, we are surrounded by impermanence. We are impermanent beings surrounded by impermanence. We build things that decay and fall apart in one generation. We build houses that won't last, and buildings that won't last, and bridges that fall apart. We break apart our families, and we spread out, and we sever those bonds. And many of us don't even have kids, or don't have enough kids. And most of our time is spent on the internet in a place where nothing exists physically. And it only exists, this content only exists in our consciousness for a moment before it's gone and we forget about it. And everything we do here could be erased forever by just like flipping a switch. It's all gone. So we are the least permanent, the most transient, the most fleeting civilization that's ever existed. Our roots are buried right beneath the surface, if even that. And we've noticed the same problem, that we are impermanent. We are more troubled by it, really, than anyone, because our lives are lived in such a shallow way in this digital world that we access through phones that break every 18 months. So our way around it is medical. We try to fight against impermanence of life by extending our actual physical lives for as long as we can. That's the worst way to do it. Our ancestors found a way to live 1,000 years. Right, by building, by having, through your bloodline and through the things that you build, and by the civilization that you build and you're a part of, your culture, right? And so that's how you live on. Well, we found a way to live an extra 20 or so. And then after we die, no trace of ourselves will exist. Nothing that we did or said or built will outlive us. And so, you got guys like Brian Johnson is the Don't Die movement. They even make it a movement, don't die. Well, it's like, yeah, dude, you're going to die. You are going to die. You're not, there's no way around it. It's the law of physics. You can't get around it. I'm sorry. even if you figure out, so what he means is, well, don't die before you're 100. Okay. But then what? Then you are going to die. And what lives on beyond you? What outlives you? That's the question. And that's not something you're going to solve with AI. Okay, let's get to the comment section.
If you're a man, it's required that you grow a beard. Hey, we're the sweet baby gang.
All right, here's one comment. Ann says, Matt, since you still haven't talked about 31 Atlas, I can only assume this is the subject of your next documentary. We need to know what you think about this important topic. You know, I have to apologize. I rarely do it, but I feel moved to apologize because you're right. Somehow I have not mentioned this story. This story was made for me. It was made for this show. This object came from interstellar space just for this show. That's what I believe. I'm not an egomaniac at all. And I've neglected to talk about it. I don't know what's gotten into me. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But yes, 31 Atlas, for those who don't know, is supposedly a comet. And what makes the comet unique is that it's interstellar, meaning it came from outside of our solar system. And, you know, most of the stuff flying around in space all originates in our solar system. It's just like going on a giant loop, you know, around the whole system. This one comes from the outside. And I think there's only like 2 or 3 interstellar objects that have ever been identified. So this is very, very unique. Now, the other thing that makes it unique is that it's flying close. It's flying very closely by multiple planets. Venus, Mars, Jupiter. So it's almost like a probe would if it wanted to get a look at all these different planets. And most interestingly, it seems to be exhibiting propulsion. So that's the thing that some scientists have keyed in on. It's propelling itself in a way that cannot be explained, apparently, through just gravity. It seems to be exhibiting non-gravitational propulsion. And that's why some scientists have theorized that this could be some kind of alien technology. Not a comet, but an alien ship or an alien probe of some kind, which, and most scientists, by the way, admittedly have said, no, definitely not. I think there's been like 2 or 3 scientists who have said, this might be aliens. And then every other scientist has said, no way. So if you're someone who cares about scientific consensus, which I don't know how anyone could at this point, then, you know, maybe you that's all you need to know. But others, there are a few that say, well, maybe this is aliens. And look, I don't need to tell you that that's the theory that I obviously ascribe to. Goes without saying. I'm going alien on this one all the way. I don't even need to look into it. I don't need to research it. As soon as I heard about it, someone told me about it. I didn't even hear the whole thing. You know, there's this thing, 31 Atlas. I said, what's that? They said, oh, it's a thing that's in space. Oh, aliens. Oh, you mean aliens? So no doubt in my mind, to me, the most fascinating possibility is this is an unmanned probe from another solar system. And if it is, that means that it could be thousands of or millions of years old. You know, it could be a probe from a civilization that went extinct 1 million years ago. Right? So speaking of the impermanence of life, could be that. This could be something coming not just from another place, but from another time. And that's what's really wild to think about. And that's what is interesting. That's why I insist that this is interesting. Even as 98% of the audience, their eyes are just glazing over. But this is fascinating stuff. You know, I've heard other predictions that this is an alien spaceship and they might be landing here. That there's reason to believe that they'll be landing here by December. I've read that prediction. I've read that scientific prediction. That's what someone said on Twitter anyway. I don't know if it was a scientist, but someone said that. I don't know what they're basing it on, but again, I'm sold. I'm in. I believe. A healthy metabolism is one of the best things you can have for your overall health and energy, but what if you could have a real-time metabolic coach that tells you what your metabolism is doing at any given moment? Lumen makes that a real option. Lumen is a portable device that measures, tracks, and analyzes your metabolism. It's the world's first handheld metabolic coach, and all you have to do is breathe into it. Each morning, one breath can tell you whether you're burning fat or carbs. You can check in before and after meals or workouts to see what's happening in your body in real time. And Lumen gives you tailored tips to optimize your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and stress management. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how you turn food into fuel. Since it's at the center of everything your body does, a healthy metabolism means easier weight management, better energy, improved fitness results, and quality sleep. That's why my producer McKenna decided to try Lumen. She found it easy to use and helped her create a personalized nutrition plan while giving her a clear understanding of her overall metabolic health. Winter is the perfect season to get your health under control. Stay energized, stay resilient, take charge of your metabolism. Go to lumen.me/Walsh to get an additional 10% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/Walsh for 10% off on top of any offers or sales running on the website. You've waited more than 2 years for it. The Daily Wire's most ambitious project ever. The Pendragon Cycle, Rise of the Merlin, an epic 7-part series coming exclusively to Daily Wire Plus. Don't pay full price to watch it. Right now, during our Black Friday sale, you can join Daily Wire Plus for 50% off new annual memberships and be one of the first to see it January 22nd. All access members get early access to episodes 1 and 2 of the Pendragon Cycle on Christmas Day. It's our best deal of the year. It's happening right now. Save 50%. No code needed. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. There's a discourse that has started online over this video, and I'll play the video and then tell you what makes it interesting, because the interesting part will not be immediately obvious to you. When you first see it, you're going to say, this is the least interesting thing I've ever seen. But it's a very quick little clip. Here it is. Now, for those listening to the audio podcast, that's a video of a person, a man, we're led to believe, sitting alone at a restaurant and crying while he eats his mashed potatoes. I think it's mashed potatoes. I don't know. And the caption on the screen says, "You don't know lonely until you have to take yourself for that meal alone, because sitting in a room with strangers is better than sitting in your own thoughts in an empty room." Now, at first blush, nothing too fascinating going on here. This is someone performing sadness for the camera, selling their tears for clicks. Nothing more cynical or less sympathetic than somebody who takes a selfie video of themselves crying. Okay, you deserve no sympathy if you do that. I'm sorry. Anyone who, if you're that desperate for sympathy, then you shouldn't get any sympathy. It only encourages you at that point. But this is especially strange behavior for a man, because what kind of a man cries about eating alone at a restaurant? Eating alone at a restaurant is great. I mean, it's one of the life's simplest joys, as every man knows. I've never known a man who would think to himself, "Oh no, I get a quiet meal at a nice restaurant by myself. What a tragedy. This is awful. A nice meal, no one's talking to me, and I just get to sit here in quiet. Well, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me." I've never known a man who would think that. And besides, what kind of man would film this emotional meltdown and post it to TikTok? I mean, what kind of man would look back at a video of himself crying and say, "You know what? I need everyone to see this. I need everyone. I got to show the world. The whole world needs to see this. Hey, world, look at me crying here." What kind of man would do that? Well, as it turns out, the kind of man who does that is the kind of man who is not a man. This is, as you may have already been able to tell, apparently a female to male transgender. It is a woman who, quote unquote, transitioned to a man. That's what kind of makes it interesting. You know, we always talk about how trans people will never actually be the sex they're trying to be, which is obviously true. But it's also true that, especially in the case of a trans-identified female, which we don't talk about as often, we usually talk about the other way, male-identified, trans-identified males. But in particular, when it comes to trans-identified females, they're never going to be a man, never going to be a male. But they may get to experience a small sliver of the thing. They'll never be the thing they want to be, but they may get close enough to stand in its shadow, ever so briefly. Because if a woman goes through with the medical transition, she probably will be allotted some tiny portion of the social experience of being a man. She won't be a man at all. Pre-transition, she was a billion light years away from literally being a man. Post-transition, she is still a billion light years away. But because of the way she looks, she will perhaps catch a hazy glimpse into the world of men. She'll get a small, diluted sip of the cup of manhood. And invariably, this small sip will prove to be way too much. It's like drinking a small sip of gasoline. It burns her, it destroys her, it eats away at her insides. And we've seen this many times before. We've seen many videos of these trans-identified females who, quote unquote, became men and are not happy at all, are devastated when they've discovered what it's like. Ellen Page is perhaps the most prominent example of this. It's a little bit like when I was 10 years old and I bugged my dad for a sip of his beer because it looks delicious in the glass, right? It's like this froth. It looks like a root beer float or something in the glass. Beer does. And so to my surprise, my dad said, yeah, and then watched with amusement as I took one sip and recoiled in disgust. I mean, it looked so tempting from the outside, but then I drank it and discovered that it was bitter and foul. And I asked my dad, I said, wait, that's what it tastes like? And you actually like this stuff? How? And that's the same question that women like the one in the video or Ellen Page ask after they get the tiniest little sip of the male experience. Wait, that's what this is? And you guys like this? What women don't realize is that the male experience is one of profound isolation. To be a man is to be isolated and alone in a very real sense. Now, we don't talk about it, partly because we don't fully realize it ourselves in the same way that a fish doesn't realize he's in water. We also don't talk about it because it would just be whining, but it's true. Now, it is lonely to be a man, and it's a kind of loneliness that women, as the softer, more sociable, more relational sex, simply aren't built to endure. Now, when I say that men are isolated, I'm not even talking about the relentless demonization of men in our society. That obviously has an isolating effect. That's part of it, but this is even deeper than that. Men are isolated by nature. It's our lot in life. Single men, in particular, walk through a world where they are not really noticed or valued unless they can do or provide something. And then their value only goes as far as the thing they're doing or providing. Now, for a young woman, especially if she's modestly attractive, which just really means for a young woman, don't be fat. I mean, if she's not fat, then she is, in the eyes of many men, of plenty of men, will count as modestly attractive. And so for her, it's different. People will notice her and be nice to her just because she's there. And she doesn't need to do anything. It's just not that way for men. To be a single man in today's world, in any world, but especially in today's world, it's about the loneliest thing. And single women may be lonely too, but they typically have many more friends. They navigate a world that treats them nicely, that goes out of its way to make them feel valued. That's not the case for men. A man may have a couple of friends, he may have none at all, but he lives in a world that just doesn't care how he feels. Either way. Now, once a man is married and has children, he's no longer alone. A measure of the isolation has been taken away, but he is called to be the emotional rock for the family, which means, as we've discussed before, that he can't be entirely vulnerable. He cannot unload all of his stresses and frustrations all the time. Doesn't mean he has to keep everything to himself, but there are many things that he just has to keep to himself. He's the leader of the home, and there is a kind of loneliness that comes with leadership, as anyone who's ever been in a leadership position knows, right? And this is how men were made. Men are the ones who are called to go off and die in war. Every society in human history since the dawn of time has treated men as expendable in a way that women are not. I mean, even now, if you hear about, in our enlightened age, in our enlightened egalitarian age, if you hear about casualties in war, you'll be much more outraged and heartbroken to hear about 10 women and children dying than to hear that 1,000 men died, right? Human civilization is built and maintained by men who are willing to die. There's never a lot of gratitude shown to these men. These days, there's almost none at all. And instead, the men who build civilization are demonized and scapegoated. 100-year-old World War II veterans look around and see that everything they fought to achieve has been squandered. Is that isolating? Of course it is. Men have always done the thankless tasks in society, the dirty and dangerous and unsightly things. And now the thanklessness has turned to outright scorn. Now, the good news for men is that we're made for this. We learn to love our lot in life. We don't expect gratitude from the world because we never really received it. We've never been in a world where people just are nice to you all the time and want to constantly make you feel cherished and valued. It's the old stereotype about, You compare a pastor's sermon on Mother's Day to the one he gives on Father's Day, and Mother's Day, it's always like telling women how wonderful they are, and Father's Day, it's always, hey, get it together, guys. You're failing your families, and that's real. That's the way society approaches the two sexes, and so this is all we know. Now, hopefully, we get married and have children, and if we do, that's almost all the social connection we need. I mean, a man would be fine going to work and coming home to his wife and children and having like no friends or connections outside of that. In fact, a man even dreams of deeper isolation. Part of him longs for the pioneer days when he could take his family out into the wilderness and build a life alone out there, away from everybody. But he's not living in those days, and his wife wants him to have friends, so he maintains a few friendships with other men who he sees on occasion, which is good and healthy because men should have friends, absolutely. The fraternal connection between men is important to maintain. But the point is that most men, once they have a family, could survive just fine and even be happy with no friends and no connection to anybody else. A man's friendships are also not nearly as intense as a woman's. A man may have a friend that he talks to like once every 6 months and sees even less frequently than that, and that's fine. Now, my wife has friends that she calls and talks to every day. I've never met an adult man who talks to another man on the phone every day or anything close to that. I was like, if we talk on the phone, then like I'll talk to you again in 9.5 months, maybe. But we don't need that. What could we possibly have to say to each other every day? If a man called me just to check in and then called the next day to check in again, I would assume he was having some kind of mental breakdown. That's just not how men are. Like, we don't need that much communication and connection, at least not that intensely. So this is the good news. Society needs men to be more isolated, less emotional, less desirous of human connection, and men on average are all of those things. But what happens when a woman tries to come play in our sandbox? What happens when she takes a small dose of our medicine? What happens when she tries to carry the burden of manhood? Well, exactly what you would expect. I mean, it breaks her. Her knees buckle, her back gives out. She wasn't prepared. She couldn't have been. Now, I'm not just talking about women who are trans. This includes women who try to play the role of men in any form, women who take on combat roles in military, police officers, try to be ruthless like corporate girl bosses, all that stuff. In all these cases, women are trying to do what men are uniquely built to do, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. Now, about that video of the trans female, somebody on X put it this way, that this is a woman experiencing male social isolation without the male psychology that makes it survivable. And I think the account's name was Hunter Ash, I think, said that. And that about sums it up. This is perhaps the deepest truth about the trans phenomenon, which is rarely said. We always talk about how a man cannot become a woman and a woman cannot become a man, which is true. But what we don't say to the person trying to cross the divide from one sex to the other is this: you can't have what you want, but also you don't really want it. That'll do it for the show today and this week. Talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Godspeed.
Today on The Ben Shapiro Show, Democrats have pulled far ahead of Republicans in the generic congressional ballot, and we examine why. NVIDIA reports massive profits, but Target reports the opposite, and we take a look at New York's ghost apartments. All of that on today's Ben Shapiro Show. Give it a listen.
The Matt Walsh Show is a Daily Wire production. Copyright Daily Wire 2025.